I've had to change this video around a few times because there are so many things I'd like to say about Ryan Howard. He is to this day one of my favorite players ever, and all he ever did was make me sad. I was going to make this a basic overview of his career, telling you why he was one of my favorite first basemen of all time, and try to figure out why I've always had such a strong connection to him. Ryan Howard put up Hall of Fame caliber numbers at the tail end of the steroid era, and matched the kind of power numbers that Bonds was putting up in some of his best stretches of seasons. I was going to center this around the idea that Howard was the clean version of Barry Bonds in more ways than one. Howard had one of the best offensive peaks ever, but I still don't see him get appreciated as much as I feel he should be, and I was going to focus this video solely on how underrated I believe he still is today. I think I can accomplish all of these things just by looking at a small subset of Howard's major league career from 2006 to 2009. From here, we can get everything we need to touch on all of it, and appreciate just how good one of the best Phillies to ever put on the uniform was at his best. If at any point you like what you see in this video and want to make sure you don't miss out on content throughout 2021, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. This is our 4th year now making content on this channel, and our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers this year, so we would really appreciate your support. I think we really stepped up our game in 2020, and we're excited to do it again this year. Peak Ryan Howard was incredibly dangerous in his prime, and went on one of the most overwhelming offensive tears ever. I'm talking Sosa, McGwire, Bonds tier. I don't think people ever really associate those names with Ryan Howard, so I think reminding you of, or even introducing you to, the player at his best will make you appreciate the player he was. Howard was so good that most of the only hitters comparable to him in his prime were steroid users. You'd think more baseball fans would talk about his run considering, as far as we know, he did it clean. And I'm going to be using that word clean a lot in this video. Not trying to stir up controversy, I just want to consider him in the context of both baseball history and among players without an unfair advantage tipping the scales. I consider the peak of Ryan Howard's career to be the season spanning from 2006 to 2009. During this 4-year stretch, Howard had a .967 OPS, 45% better than the average hitter, hit 198 homers, and drove in 572 runs. The only other planet in Howard's universe during this span was Albert Pujols, and I'm sure most of you know how good Albert Pujols was at this time. Pujols was the runner-up in this stretch in both homers and RBI, but was a full 2008 Chase Utley behind him in homers, and about one full 2019 JT Realmuto behind in runs driven in. In his first 4 full major league seasons, Howard nearly did something only a small handful of legends had ever done at their best, hitting 200 home runs in a 4-season span, and even fewer have done it clean. This is an unofficial list from Reddit user Antithesis on the baseball subreddit, showing off hitters who've done this. Only 5 players are on it: Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds, Babe Ruth, and Ken Griffey Jr. Howard just missed joining that historic club. But if I were to ask you who the fastest player to reach the 1,000 RBI, 100 homer, and 200 homer milestones was, who would be the first players to come to mind? It was Howard. In this 4-season conquest, he drove in 572 runs, including 3 seasons of driving in more than 140. Only one other National League player has 3 140 RBI seasons in their entire career. Not a single player in National League history besides Ryan Howard has done it clean. And that's also a credit to those around Howard in that Phillies lineup of that time period: Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, Shane Victorino, and more. But it's still impressive for Howard nonetheless. Of course, given the nature of that part of baseball history, there were always suspicions surrounding his success. At the start of Howard's reign in 2006, Mark McGwire was 5 years removed from the league, while Sosa and Bonds would play their final seasons in the majors in 2007. Peaking only a few years after 2001 Barry Bonds, Howard was essentially filling a power vacuum left in a post-prime Bonds league. Bonds is one of the few sluggers to share the same offensive leaderboards as Howard at his best. Howard was in certain ways the anti-Barry Bonds. Sure, he didn't steal bases like Bonds did, and he definitely wasn't the all-around athlete that Bonds was, but those comparisons still make sense when comparing their slugging capabilities and their images in baseball. Bonds was far from a beloved figure. He was one of the premier faces of arguably the most controversial era of baseball history. Howard, on the other hand, was pretty much the opposite. He's always been well-liked by the fans, the media, Michael Scott, his teammates and management, and was controversy-free in an environment where a lot of players of that caliber just weren't. Whether or not the rest of baseball gave him the credit he deserved during a time where suspicions ran high, I think we can look back at him now and say that he really was an unquestionably iconic player of his time. That 4-year peak even has its own peak in 2006, which was Howard's best season of professional baseball. And the peak of that peak even had its own peak in late August, a 16-day bombardment of baseball where Ryan Howard went full Super Saiyan. I've never seen Dragon Ball Z, so did I say that right? Following his Rookie of the Year win in 2005, Ryan Howard took his game to the next level in 2006. Then he took it to the next level. And then the next level. Some say it was the greatest offensive season for a Philly in the franchise's history, although that's still up for debate. He got a small taste of the big leagues in 2004, and won the Rookie of the Year in 2005 in only 88 games, so his first full season as a Major League player was in 2006. Off topic, but funny enough, 2006 was also the first full season of The Office and their own Ryan Howard. In his first full season, before the era of juiced baseballs and without the aid of PEDs, Howard found himself on the hunt for 60 homers. He woke up on the 23rd of August with 43 so far during the season. He woke up 16 days later on September the 8th with 56. Between these two dates, he had an OPS of nearly 2 and was on base almost 60% of the time. He drove in 42 runs in August alone, the most in a single month since 1972. He accumulated 2 wins above replacement in 16 days. That's more WAR in 2 weeks than 2019 Jason Hayward put up in 147 games. The quotient of the number of home runs a hitter hits in a season and the total number of fly balls he hit gives you a player's home run to fly ball rate for that season. League average typically fluctuates around 10% or so. The league average in 2019 was 15.3% and 10.8% in 2006. Fangraphs considers 20% to be the top tier for a hitter in this category. For every 100 fly balls Howard hit in 2006, nearly 40 of them were homers. That is double the top tier rate by Fangraphs standard. The second highest that year, 10 fewer for every 100. Howard's 58 home runs in 2006 was tied for the 10th most ever hit in a single season. Giancarlo Stanton is the only one who's eclipsed that total since. If we take out steroid users and strictly looked at the seasons we believe to be considered clean, we have only Roger Maris, Babe Ruth, and Stanton ahead of Ryan Howard. Feared power hitters of course tend to draw more intentional walks than they would otherwise, and Howard's 37 in 2006 is the 9th most in a single season of all time. Only 3 players, Barry Bonds, Willie McCovey, and Albert Pujols, have ever drawn more. Take out Bonds, only 2. Ryan Howard broke baseball, and baseball was terrified of him. Howard won the Home Run Derby at PNC Park in 2006 as an All-Star reserve, beating out David Wright of the Mets. He took home the National League's Most Valuable Player award, becoming the second player in history to win the Rookie of the Year award and MVP in back-to-back seasons. This was one of a whole museum's worth of awards he won for his performance that season. These capped off a historic first full-time season, and the beginning of the 4-year run that inspired this video. I think I figured out why I've always felt such a strong connection with Howard. He reminds me so much of my childhood, and the time period where I started loving baseball. I really started getting into watching the sport in the mid-2000s, in the thick of the Mets-Phillies rivalry. The days of Howard, Utley, Rollins, Delgado, Wright, and Reyes. Speaking of, he also reminds me a lot of my favorite Met of all time, and the only first baseman in history I like more, and that's Carlos Delgado. Although Pujols is in that conversation too. Delgado and Howard always felt like this yin and yang duo, 2 left-handed power-hitting first basemen playing for rival teams who got to match up for slugfests 20 times a season. Howard and Delgado were players I looked up to playing the game myself as a first baseman, and even though Howard only ever killed the Mets, I still loved him and looked up to him, and that feeling has not changed since. I'm not going to throw some grand outro at you, I just hope you've all learned a little bit about Ryan Howard in this video, because he's a player worth remembering. Hopefully more people start to look back on his career not for the Achilles injury and the tail end of his career, but rather for the kind of player he was at his best, and more importantly, the kind of person he was. If you'd like more content like this throughout the new year, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Do you have any players like Howard who've stuck with you throughout your life, even if they weren't players you rooted for? Let me know down in the comments. I hope you had a really great holiday with your families, and let's hope for a safe and healthy 2021. Thanks for watching.